The topic of citizenship was never an issue when the people still retained much of their power. As so many have noted, most white nations have always been sympathetic with those who choose to come to our lands. It's true that most Western nations are white, but they are composed of many different kinds of white people. White people come from many different backgrounds, even if they all share the identity of white and Western. Needless to say then, whites are hardly monolithic. The worst wars were fought between white nations. Few would put the Irish, Scottish and English in the same group of whites, though all are white, if they did not occupy such a small landmass and were it not for that the English was able to unite these people forcibly. But the animosity between them runs deep. And so when people from India, China, or some other country mocks the idea of a uniform Western culture, or deny there is something which is a white nation, or white culture or a citizen of a white nation, there is some justification for their position. The response to the mocking may be one of annoyance, but this response lacks content. We need a better response, not just to deal with the racist implications of the claim, but to cement our identity. It is not that these other nations are more racially pure. India split because it could not find a way to amalgamate its diverse society. Other nations engage in civil wars and genocide because of their racial, ethnic and cultural diversity issues. No nation has a right to preach to any Western nation, but regardless, the claim that the West lacks reasonable grounds on which to defend its cultural, racial and political integrity, needs to be addressed. First of all, the West needs a better understanding of what makes a citizen part of a nation, and what defines a nation. These concepts must be defined in terms of a power dynamic. Either the people have power, or power is taken from them and invested in idols. An office is a modern idol. When someone is made prime minister or president, he is idolized, i.e. his identity is that of an idol because he inhabits an office that has been invested with arcane and ritualistic power. The power of the office of president is not natural, it is ritualistically invested in the seat and the symbols of the office. This power of position is not inherent in the person, it is invested in the agency. The office is given agency and then the person is given the mantle of the office. It is the same process that takes a baby and gives it legal status. The newborn takes its power from the state. By giving up its power as a citizen, it acquires the imaginary power of a subject. The citizen has inherent power. The subject has privileges. The nation does not give citizens power. The state takes power from the citizen, then gives privileges to its subjects. The nation is the power of its citizens. This power is direct. It is economic. True power comes through the ownership of property. We own only what we create. We have access to property through our rights of dominion. We have power over where we are located. We have the power of use over what we need for life. We cannot claim what others create. Everyone must be paid for the work they do according to the time they spent in labor. The state, however, wants the power of the citizens and by extension, the power of the nation. The state, the governmental agencies, want the power of the nation to be invested in them, until for intents and purposes, the state is the nation. The state seeks to acquire power over people to acquire power over property. The state cannot control the nation until it controls the citizens of the nation. To acquire power, the state gives the people the vote. The vote transfers the power of the citizen to the state, creating subjects. The property of a subject belongs to the state. If you do not have property, you do not have power. But therein is the problem, because people know that and they want property. The problem is not in people wanting property and power, it is that they do not wish to work for it. Property is a manifestation of time, at least for humans. For God, it is a manifestation of space. By this we do not mean that mankind created time substantively, but ownership of property represents our time, the investment of time. The reality is we cannot own physical property because we did not create it. We own the value we add to assets by means of the time we apply to it, as work. We own the value of the work we do. It is in this sense that our property that we own represents the time we invested in work. But too many want power but not the responsibility that comes with work. Parasites want the benefits of property ownership, but not the expenditure of energy that comes with working for what we want. They think their time is too valuable to spend it working. Investors like to talk about making money work for them. What they mean is making their ownership of property be used to make other people work for them. Parasites do not just want property, they want the power over others that ownership gives them. But no one's time is more valuable than the time of another. My time is equal to your time and your time equal in value to mine. The citizen needs to be paid for what they do. Credit for work done gives the people their power, and ultimately it gives power to the nation, removing it from idols and offices. Democracy is the power of the people. Whatever divests the people of their property, divests them of power and must be discontinued. We cannot sell our power for a plate of pottage, that is, for short-term gain. MAGA can be translated as give the citizen his power back again. We are as great as we have power. MAGA refers back to a time when one's citizenship meant something, because it represented a certain level of power. MAGA means or can be interpreted to mean, give the citizen his power back again. This is why the reaction to the phrase has been so dynamic. People want their power back. Of course, the MAGA movement is opposed by those who have acquired power by illicit means. Office holders and their allies do not want their illicit power taken from them. But the only power they have is the power they have taken from the people, so their ownership of property does not add power to the nation or its people, it merely changes the power dynamics and the social structure, without any gain or community benefit. You might think that the people encompass all persons within a region. It does, technically, but a parasite squatting in a house does not give power to the people. Indeed, since squatters are technically parasites, they drain power from the people. To start with, the existence of a squatter requires a state. Squatters are a legal fiction. A squatter is just a thief of property. We the people do not need laws against theft. We do not need parasites to be the subject of identity politics and classified into a dozen different categories. To engage in identity politics, however, is to identify two groups and link their identity to the struggle for power. In the one group are the demonic, or what the Bible calls the people of the flesh. Their entire existence is predicated on the acquisition of power through deceit and subterfuge. Democracy is their main methodology, at least in the developed world. Parasites get us to vote for them based on their ability to give us power without the cost. Democrats have, according to their view of things, a magical formula for creating and distributing power that can be ours if we just vote for them. It is a marriage made in hell. The modern world, at least as the democratic nations, has morphed into two groups attempting to scam the other to the detriment of both. The citizen votes away his or her birthright to gain privileges that are easily removed. To pay for all of the promises made by Democrats, subjects resign themselves to bouts of egregious taxation. Not just innumerable forms of direct taxation, but the inflation of the very currency they are taxed with. The subject is given roads, schools, hospitals and other public goods, paid for out of the money they earn making these and other goods and services. As if they could not be made using some other funds than those expropriated by the state. The question as to what a citizen is comes down to whether a nation is defined at the grassroots level by the elites. If a nation is defined by its people, then it is a populist construct. The natural community model would be the populi. The kinds of community we find in our nations today is the product of a top-down approach, ill-suited for nations that are populous in design. The question is if one prefers to have steep gradients of power in which everything is decided by elites, giving rise to globalism, or if the principle of subsidiarity is brought into play. If the latter, then a nation is an association of populi that together form a populous market. A citizen is a member of a nation and therefore a member of a populi administrated solely by the populous market. We can say a citizen is not a subject and a person that does not assign his or her rights to any globalist agent or agency.